This revealed a lot about the New York Islanders, as in their first game this season, they looked a lot different than they did all last season. And even though that game resulted in a loss, there is a lot of optimism in the fan base based on what we saw. And we're going to discuss several things I noticed in this game that I think are going to translate into more success later in the season. In addition, we also have to discuss Jonathan Drouin, who will be facing disciplinary action from the NHL after a cross-check to the head. Really quickly, before we get into that, we were just like 4 subscribers away from 1,800. So if you haven't already, be sure to help us hit that goal. Now let's get right into talking about this game. Was not a great game for the New York Islanders in the sense that it was not a win, but I think it was very encouraging. Before we talk about some of the players who I think really stood out and are going to continue to make a difference in this season as opposed to previous seasons, let's first talk about this cross-check to the head from Jonathan Drouin. It was like 18 seconds left in the game. Frustrations were high. He did get a couple jabs taken on him, and he gave a cross-check to the head. And as a result, he will be facing a 1-game suspension for this cross-check. And I think this is a fair punishment. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think this should have been a suspension? For me, with the NHL, you want to start on the right foot. I think last year, cross-checks and just in general, discipline got out of hand. Cross-checks to the head, even though I don't think it was super malicious and it wasn't too violent, it's a clear cross-check that you can see it right here in the image, and it's to the center of the head, really. Fortunately, Connor Dewar is okay. For Drouin, it's a 1-game suspension, and this will not be a big deal for the Islanders. In fact, we'll get to see another player potentially play in that role, and that was something we will be discussing in the next episode of Islanders Digest. But for me, I think this is a fair suspension. In fact, if it were up to me, I might have given 2 just to let the players know, hey, beginning of the season, we are not tolerating it this year, but 1-game suspension, I think it's fair. But I'd love to know your thoughts on it in the comments. Now let's talk about the game. And before we talk about Mathew Schaefer, because I know you want to hear what my thoughts were on Mathew Schaefer, first we have to talk about something that I really think stood out in this game, and that is Mathew Barzal went 7 for 10 in faceoffs, which going into the season, one of the big question marks was with Matt Barzal playing center. First of all, how is he going to look after that knee injury? And I have to say, Matt Barzal looks like the star player of the Islanders that we were hoping he would be once again after returning from injury. I have no concerns. We didn't have much concerns once we saw him in the preseason, but watching how he played today, I thought he was even better. He's fast on his skates. He's making sharp turns. No concerns about Barzal. But more importantly, faceoffs have been a major concern for him throughout his career. And yes, this is an incredibly small sample size, which is why we're not going to focus on a lot of mistakes the Islanders made. But I do want to note, if he can continue to win at least half his faceoffs, 7 for 10 is a really strong day. I don't expect him to repeat that. But if Barzal can continue to be strong in the dot, this is going to be really crucial for him sticking as a center, which I think is a stronger position for him to play. So this is a very encouraging sign for the New York Islanders moving forward. I think him playing center really opened up the rest of the ice. I don't want to focus too much on the Kyle Palmieri goal because I want to talk about the rookies, but with that goal, with Matt Barzal being able to skate down the middle of the ice and quickly distribute that puck to Kyle Palmieri, that's exactly why you want him at center. That's where he really has the most value. Of course, he plays great with Bo Horvat, and I do want to see him play more with Bo Horvat in key situations. I do think they should have been playing together a little earlier when the Islanders were struggling against the Pittsburgh Penguins to put up a sustainable offense. But the face-offs are very encouraging early on, and hopefully he continues to win face-offs at a clip above 50%, even if it's closer to 48. In the past, Matt Barzal has been around 42%, which is definitely a deficiency. I don't try to focus too much on face-off wins, but if he can consistently be above 50% all year, it'd be very important for the Islanders moving forward. If the goal is for him to be a center long term, which it looks like as of right now it is. Next, we got to talk about Mathew Schaefer and his assists in this game. Mathew Schaefer looked very good in his first NHL game, played around 17 minutes. I was really excited to see Patrick Roy finally put him in at the end of the game. Felt he made a couple good things happen there, getting the puck on net. And in this play, he showed his confidence, being able to carry the puck into the zone, gets it back, and gives a good pass to Drouin, who scored the goal. It was a little bit of a wonky shot, but a beautiful pass by Schaefer. And at this point, I think everybody who was doubting whether or not Schaefer was NHL ready, I think those doubts, if they haven't completely been removed, they have definitely been reduced by a large margin, because he looked so polished out there. Really, there were no real plays where he looks like a complete rookie out there. There were a couple of times where Scott Mayfield's really put him in a tough situation. But really, if you watched that defensive pair, I would have thought that Scott Mayfield was the player playing in his first NHL game, making some rush mistakes. Schaefer looked so calm out there, and it is only going to get better. And I am so excited to see how he continues to develop throughout the year. And at this point, while he still has, Islanders still have 8 more games to make their decision on whether or not he's going to stay up all year, I think it's pretty clear that Mathew Schaefer is in the NHL to say. Speaking of rookies, Maxim Shabanov also scored his first goal in the NHL. A really good shot, and this is something you definitely want to see. I will note with Shabanov too, like with Schaefer, it was not just this goal that looked good. He also, a couple times, the puck was the defenseman had the puck, and he did a great job skating through his point man, which is something you really want to see. While he is a smaller player, he does not play like he's small, and I liked a lot of the little things that he did in his game. This line in general, with Pageau, Holmstrom, and Shabanov, was one of the best games, one of the best lines for the Islanders in this game. This is something they also are going to need to carry moving forward. I was very impressed with the speed of this lineup throughout. I thought all 4 lines had a good pace to them, which really was not the case in the past. And this just goes beyond the Islanders adding faster players, which with Shabanov, with Schaefer, you have added faster players to this lineup. But in addition, it just seems like they're playing more of a north-south game, which is really making this team a more exciting team to watch. I think we can all agree, even though it was disappointing that the Islanders did not win this game, this is probably the most exciting Islanders game we've watched in a very long time. They were making more plays, they were shooting the puck more, and they were just getting down the ice quicker than they have in the past. I think this is something that was not a one-off game thing. Although it is the first game of the season, you can't read too much into that. I do want to emphasize that. I think this is a change the Islanders have made for this year. This is more in line with the style that Patrick Roy wants to play, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to make them win more games, because if there are any concerns, I think the defense looked very shaky in this game. Ironically, not really from Schaefer, but from the unit in general. It was a little shaky. So I don't know yet if this faster play style is going to make them a better hockey team, at least significantly. I definitely think it's going to make them more fun to watch, which is great news for Islander fans. Final note, I do want to also touch on the penalty killing. I thought that looked atrocious in the first game. Even in the ones where they were getting a kill, like the quality of chances the Pittsburgh Penguins were getting on the penalty kill, the power play, were incredibly high. And what's concerning about this to me, while the Penguins have very good power play players, don't get me wrong, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Erik Karlsson, the Penguins are no longer the premier power play in the NHL. They've been replaced by a lot of teams. So for the Islanders to struggle so much against this power play unit, it is a little concerning moving forward, especially considering that was something they focused on during the offseason and during training camp. It does not look like it's all that much better. It seems like so many times guys are just left in front of the net. There are points where you watch the play and you're really wondering who is getting covered. I think Ryan Pollock, while he was okay 5-on-5, he looked absolutely lost on the penalty kill. This is something that definitely has to be addressed. But overall, I would say the vibes were very good in this game from the New York Islanders, and I'm very pleased with the faster pace of play. But I'd love to know what your thoughts were on this game, and of course, what you think about the suspension to Jonathan Drouin. On our next episode of Islanders Digest, we're going to talk about how that's going to change the lineup for at least a game and really give another player a chance to play on the top line, and we'll discuss who that's going to be. But that's going to do it for this episode of Islanders Digest. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode. Let's go, Islanders.